What's up? It's Josh Martinez of Z100, New York's number one hit music station, with my guest, AEW's Bryan Danielson. What's going on, man?
Not much. I'm just hanging out in Toronto and having a nice day before tomorrow's huge show.
Yeah, so AEW All Out Toronto. Is there one particular match that you're looking forward to more than the others because a friend is involved, or you're just curious to see how it's going to kind of play out?
So I mean, there are. So it's like one of the things that I'm really interested in is the AEW men's world heavyweight world championship match between Hangman Adam Page and Kyle Fletcher. Because Kyle Fletcher is like 26 years old. This is his first time in like a championship match on a world championship match on a pay-per-view. Like, how's he gonna do? How, like, because I'm just super impressed with Kyle, and I love Hangman, and so I'm really excited to see that one. One of the other ones that I'm really excited to see is Eddie Kingston's coming back and wrestling Big Bill. And um, I've known Eddie for a really long time. I admire Eddie a lot in the sense of he's had a lot of mental health struggles. He wrote this great article for the Players Tribune a couple of years ago, and I think he doesn't realize this, but I think he has the ability to positively impact people with his story, right? And I think it's probably less well known than probably Eddie's, but Big Bill has has a very similar story, but obviously a little bit different. And I think he's talked about some of the struggles that he had when he was in WWE, and I was wrestling him when he was having some of those struggles, and to see his growth not only as a performer, as a wrestler, but also his growth as a human being. I'm really excited for this match, and I'm really happy for both guys. I think both of these guys are incredible humans and they have a strong message that a lot of people can relate to.
You know what it is? When you're born and raised in New York City, a certain type of energy that you possess that maybe isn't found in another 49 set of states.
Yeah, I mean, I so that's one of the biggest beefs between me and Eddie Kingston is my inability to relate to his New Yorkness, right? Because I'm from rural Washington, right? So
Complete opposite side of the country.
yeah, and it's like I'm from a small logging town, right? It's like it's like, it's we get 82 inches of rain a year. I was like, we Eddie and I grew up very differently, but also, I mean, when you get to know Eddie, also a lot of similarities, so it's cool.
As someone born and raised in New York City, you kind of were obsessed with wrestling. I mean, you know this. You've performed here dozens of times up to this point. Growing up in Washington, right? Not exactly the biggest hub for wrestling after into the 90s and beyond, right? They
Mm-hmm.
had the regional territory at one point in the 70s and 80s. What was it for you that made you gravitate towards wrestling at such a young age?
Well, so my just to give you a little bit of background, my nobody in my family are wrestling fans. So it wasn't like my dad watched wrestling and I grew up watching it together. I was sick a lot as a kid, and a friend came over to my house, and he had his backpack, and he said, "Okay, I've got something I want to show you, but you can't tell anybody." And he starts pulling out a magazine. Now that I'm an adult, I think like, okay, what I should have thought that he was going to pull out is something like a Playboy or something. You know what I mean? Like, but it wasn't. It was like these stacks of wrestling magazines, and I'd never seen it before. I didn't know what professional wrestling is. But you have to think, I'm in first grade. He pulls out these magazines, and I'm just become just enamored with whatever this is. And I was sick a lot in school, and so I asked if I could borrow them because I read a lot when I was sick, and so like I would read through these wrestling magazines, and you would just see these monsters. And this is '80s wrestling, right? So this is like monsters, road warriors, face paint. You've got all the people at the time. WWF was doing all this stuff with people coming to the ring with animals. So you've got like Jake the Snake with the thing, and you've got the British Bulldog coming out with the thing. You've got Coco Beware with the parrot and all that kind of stuff. And I can just see looking back how this world was just like,
Oh,
yeah, it's so colorful. It's just like, yeah. So So that's how I got interested in it. That's how I fell in love.
And it's interesting because I feel like at such a young age, for me, it was the same thing. I mean, to this day, I'm drinking out of an Ultimate Warrior cup with a wrestle buddy behind me, right?
Yeah.
But it's like the color and the presentation, and obviously things have evolved from that kind of comic book wrestling to then in the '90s, it was more like an occupation, right? Isaac Yankem or TL Hopper with the plumbing, and then now it's a little more realistic. How important do you think you were to that evolution of wrestling, where it was in ring mattered more in America than probably ever before?
So I don't think it was me. I think it was what I actually pinpoint to this as far as American TV wrestling is Raw going to 3 hours. When Raw went to 3 hours,
Interesting.
uh,
Okay.
because Raw didn't use at first. Raw started off as a 1 hour show, and then it went to a 2 hour show. And wrestling, Nitro went to 3 hours, and that turned out to kind of be the death of Nitro. And there were other things, but like 3 hours is almost too much content, right? Um, and so Raw switched to 3 hours. And so what WWE needed is they needed people who could go out there and entertain people with their wrestling because you couldn't do 3 hours of interview segments and backstages and all that kind of stuff.
Oh,
There,
they tried though.
yeah, they're no, I mean they still did it and they still do it, right? But it's like, okay, you actually need more wrestling in a 3 hour show, so it's not so much. And so that really benefited somebody like me, where it's, okay, you and now it's kind of become the standard. You have to be a good wrestler to be able to be on these shows, because if you can't go out there and carry kind of a match that goes through a commercial break that's at least 10 minutes, you're gonna have a hard time in a major wrestling company in 2025.
So AEW's first trip to Arthur Ashe Stadium, I was there. It was you against Kenny Omega. The most intense crowd reaction I've ever been a part of. And I work in pop radio, so I've been to screaming tween concerts, and I've seen Olivia Rodrigo and Gracie Abrams, and a lot of these artists that your daughter will probably soon get into, if not already, right? Was that the most intense fan reaction you've ever had? Given that you guys didn't even touch, you guys, the bell just rang and everyone just lost their minds.
Yeah, I mean, I don't rank things as far as like what was the best crowd reaction or whatever it is, but it's a moment I'll never forget, right? Like I can think about it, and I just remember looking across the ring at Kenny and the crowd reaction, and just like, what did I do to deserve this life? Right? Like this is awesome, right? This is so cool. And it's like, and it was also something I'd really been looking forward to. Like, I had been watching Kenny, and I knew Kenny from before, from the independents, but we'd wrestled one match in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla that was like kind of a comedy match, and then maybe we'd cross paths. I think we did a three-way match, in Ring of Honor or something. But I mean, other than that, I've been watching Kenny and seeing Kenny's growth from the time that I had last seen him to be at that point in 2021. And, I was really, really excited for the match. And then for the crowd to be as excited about the match as I was internally, like, was just really cool.
So you were kind of an on-screen role when you were forced to retire with the WWE. Now you're doing the commentary thing from a mental health standpoint, because obviously your passion is wrestling and you've been very vocal about that's all you've wanted to be. How different is your headspace now, being an on-screen figure now compared to when you were kind of, I guess, a little bit forced into it, not more under your terms back then?
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest difference. I think that's for all of us, right? If we get to do things, you can. So it's the difference between, oh, do you know what? I'm gonna it would make my wife really happy if I just take out the trash, right? Like, and she doesn't have to ask me, and I just do it of my own accord, and I take out the trash. That's a very different thing than my wife saying, "Bryan, take out the trash," and it's just like, oh gosh, I have to take out the trash. It's the exact same thing. It's just a different circumstance, right? And so it's like, I was not ready to be done with wrestling. I did not. I it's the equivalent of my wife yelling me to take out the garbage cans, right? And this time I was ready, right? I was ready to, my body's gotten to a point where it's like, okay, this for my long-term health, this might not be a great idea for me to keep doing anymore. And also I'm ready to be, I'm ready to spend more time at home, right, with my family. Like this past year I was able to coach my son's t-ball team. I would have never been able to do that before, right? And so it's like, and I felt a deep kind of yearning these last, I would say 4 or 5 years, to be deeper involved in my community and like address some of the issues within my community. Okay, how can I help? How can I be of service? Um and so yeah, that's one of the things is having these other goals kind of as I have gotten older. David Brooks, the author, wrote a book called The Second Mountain, and it's like you spend the first half of your life pursuing this mountain that is culturally defined as success, right? And then if you get to the top of that mountain, which for me I accomplished more than I ever thought I would. um you get to the top of that mountain and you realize that that wasn't the mountain at all. There's another mountain that you want to climb. And it's like, and that's, I mean, maybe due to our human nature of never quite being content, right?
Bro, you're free. Listen, as you're speaking, I'm going through like this, and obviously this interview is about you and AEW, not me. But real quick, like I'm going through this dilemma. So I have a daughter. She's turning 2 in a couple of weeks,
Mm-hmm.
but she lives in Dayton, Ohio, and I live in New York City doing this thing that I've been wanting to do my whole life. And I'm at Z100 where I'm at now is literally the top radio station in the world, like the top pop station. Like this is it. And then to your point, it's kind of like what's next, and it's like that fulfillment of like, oh, I never saw myself as a father, but now I am, and like this is really cool when I'm with
Yeah.
her and she's learning these new words, and we're able to have like these kind of sort of conversations, right? Because they grow up so fast, and you've experienced that obviously. Um, so I'm gonna definitely check out that book because, to your point, it's like what's next, I guess, right? And I always equate success to this endless tunnel. I always tell
Mm-hmm.
people you're just in this tunnel and you're going in the back of your mind. You know, there's no end to this
Mm-hmm.
tunnel. Yet for some reason, why are we obsessed with staying in this tunnel and continuing to move forward when we know that?
Yeah, like, and these are the kind of conversations that I love because everybody obviously has a different perspective on it. But Joseph Campbell, who's a great writer, he said something along these lines, and I don't have the exact quote, but it's like a lot of people think that you find value in your life through meaning or whatever, through something that you feel a deep meaning with, right? And I think that that's true. But then he goes on to say, but I don't think that that's actually it. What you really want out of this, as far as we know, we've just got one shot at this life of existing, right? Is that you want to feel like you experienced a real life, right? And that's one of the things that when I look at like social media or whatever it is, the things that put you on your phone and desiring something like it looks like, okay, for example, Instagram, it looks like somebody's, I want to experience that life, but
Perception.
that's probably not a real life, right? They're, the way that they set up their camera or the filters or whatever it is. I mean, we all know that it's not that all that stuff's not real. It's just like, it's whatever it is. But how do you live your life in a way that you actually experience life? Like I don't want to just think about love. I want to feel loved, and I want to love somebody. So it's like one of the things with children is that it might be the first time since you're a kid. I mean, depending on your parents, right? I knew I was loved by my parents, right? But the time, even with your partner, right? A person that you dedicate your life to, right? Sometimes you don't necessarily feel that we all have these internal things, but with kids, when you have kids, like they're they just love you unconditionally, right? and then your love for them. Obviously, sometimes they make you upset or whatever it is. But like every single morning, my daughter, who's 8, runs from her room and jumps into my arms. And it's like my favorite thing to do. Actually, my favorite thing in the mornings is when she does that. And I can feel her heartbeat. And it's like, oh, like like this is this is the experience of living. The humans who were here 50,000 years ago experienced this same thing. They held their baby, they held their daughter, and experienced the heartbeat and felt joy, right? And it's like, yeah, man, like that's it. That's it.
So obviously your first child, you were a girl dad first. I'm a girl dad now. Was there a particular sport that you got her into first because you were like, this has got to be it, or were you just hands off and let kind of Bree handle that stuff?
Oh no. We as parents do we when they're young, you put them in a lot of things to see what they like, right, and see what they gravitate towards. And now that she's 8, she started to form some of her own opinions, and she doesn't like sports, which is fine. She loves art, right? She loves being creative. She loves all that kind of stuff. And um yeah, so we and but then you have to do, okay, you do need to have physical activity, but what's physical activity that she enjoys? Hiking. She actually loves yoga. So she's probably going to be a little bit like me. People wouldn't think this because I was a professional wrestler, but I'm not competitive at all. Like I have no competitive bone in my body. When I played sports, I played all the sports when I was a kid and wasn't good at any of them. Like in high school, like I liked playing football, but I
Okay.
only liked practice because and this is, I don't know, I could put it into word. I could put it into words even then. Games aren't fun. And one of the things that's not fun about them is people care about who wins. And it's like, whereas if we're just practicing, if I really just leveled my friend Evan, right? It's like I get to talk crap to him the next, like right in that moment, the next day at school, like the day after that. Oh, remember when I just smeared you? And here we are 26 years later, and I could still text him and be like, hey, remember that time I really smeared you? You know what I mean? When you play the games, you don't have that. Like if you, when I would play whatever sporting, whatever thing it was, like I'm not in contact with any of those people that I played against, right? Whereas like I can, I can text Swerve when we get off this thing and be like, hey man, I just got asked in the interview I did before this. I just got asked about the match at All In, and it literally made me feel like I got goosebumps because that moment is special to me, right? And I just want to say thank you for all of that, right? So I can text him right now and do that. That's one of the things I love about professional wrestling. I don't have a single moment like that in like a competitive athletic career where I get any sort of goosebumps or anything like that. So
Wrapping things up in a little bit, just a few more questions. So you just said thank you, that you would thank him, but I like to give flowers to people instead of waiting till later in their career. So I personally think you are the greatest of this generation. I think that the evolution of your character from heel to babyface in WWE was extraordinary. You like single handedly brought me back in to wrestling at a time as well. And I know for a fact that a lot of people feel that way. I'm sure you get the DMs, you see it often when you're in the buildings nowadays. So I just wanted to tell you that personally. So thank
oh well, thank you very much. To be honest, I don't get the DMs because I'm not on social media. I don't have.
you.
I stay away from it like the plague.
You know what? And that's probably why you're in a better mental health space than like 98% of us, right?
Right.
But before we wrap things up, the biggest story of the year seemingly has been John Cena's retirement. You've obviously had programs with him and worked with him. What would you say is his legacy to the wrestling industry?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, I don't even think about I because I don't think in those terms. I just think in terms of things that I've learned from John Cena and uh just his enormous impact on me as a person and how he carries himself. I respect John a lot. One of the things that love about John, and this story I think has been told a decent amount of times, uh but it's the stuff that he's the charity stuff that he's done, and not ever wanting acknowledgement for it, right? Mox talks about it in his book. Mox's book is really good if people haven't read it. But he talked about his dad giving people food who needed it. But he
Very
did.
early in the book, like within the first few pages of the book, he talks about Cincinnati to Dayton donating money because we're the good guys.
Yes, because we're the good guys. And it's like, but in doing so, you don't do it so that anybody knows that it's you. You're not doing it to get credit for doing it, right? Um, the first person who really kind of put that in my mental space, and he didn't say it to me. It's just you watched him and do it, was John Cena.
Mm.
You look at all the stuff that he's done for kids and everything, and he did all that. He did more make wishes than anybody ever, and didn't want anybody, like, didn't didn't need anybody to know, didn't want anybody to know. He wanted to improve the lives of those children, right? Like, that's when I think of John Cena, I'm thinking of that, right? Like, and it's different because as a fan, you may watch him and what he's done in the ring, and the his legacy within wrestling or whatever it is. His individual legacy to me is things like that. It's him giving me a better perspective and more compassion for myself when I didn't do the best when I uh main evented my first pay-per-view in WWE, right? Like, and like, his perspective on that was like, listen, you can be on you if you, it takes 6 months for people to even know who you are, right? To being on TV, like, the hardcore wrestling fans will know who you are pretty quick, right? But the casual viewers who just watch, you know, every other week, whatever it is, it takes them 6 months to even know that you exist, right? And then even longer for people to see you as a main event player, And so those are the kind of the things that I think about and the idea of when he comes to work, right? John Cena was always the first person at the building, and you'd see him. I'd get to the building, and I'm meticulous about being on time, right? Super meticulous. I don't like. That's one of the biggest issues with me and my wife especially when we first started dating, is that she had no problem. Like, if call time was you're supposed to be there at 2, my thing is, okay, I get there at 1:40, right? I don't want there to be any 20 minutes 20 minutes early, so that if anything happens on the way, I'm never late, right? Whereas my wife was like, oh, it's fine if we're there at 2:10, 2:15, and that, like, it fries my brain. I said, but you get there, and I'm perpetually early, and John Cena was always there before me, and you'd see him. He was there, like, because he would do a lot of signing of the merchandise and all that kind of stuff, and so he would be there working, and like, his approach, it's just, I just can't say enough about John Cena. I think he's just wonderful. So, anyways, that's the sort of thing that will be a legacy for me, and one of the things that I also think that he's done, and I I don't know what the discourse is because I'm not on the like I said, I'm not on social media. But one of the things that I think of in John Cena too is his willingness to get back, right? Like, he there were a period of years where he hadn't I don't think he won a single match. Like, he was just constantly losing to guys, right? And it was like,
For
but
years.
but he never lost his star power, right? And this idea of being so confident in your abilities that you can go out there and you have no problem losing, and that sort of thing. I mean, I can't say enough about John, so.
Love it. Well, tomorrow, All Out, special start time, 3 o'clock, Amazon Prime. You can order it all. More of the info is all on AEW.com. Bryan Danielson, sir, appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.